Hey guys, it's Jen and I'm excited to be back with another Inspired by video. This is a series that Juliet and I do on our YouTube channels, and we pick a designer to make a page inspired by them. So today we are being inspired by Jill Sprott, and I wanted to show you, this is going to be really awkward. This is the page I'm kind of loosely basing this layout on. One thing I've noticed about Jill is that she uses bright colors, saturated colors, and then when she uses her handwriting, she uses kind of a bolder marker. She does grids a lot, and when she doesn't use her handwriting, she uses her, like, she types, and I like both of those looks. And she always has some sort of great journaling or way of telling her story. I took a class from her at 2 Peas in a Bucket when it was still around, about journaling, and I really like she's a great writer. I am not, but I really like the way she does things, and she stitches a lot too, and she'll use it like a zigzag stitch, and she'll use colored thread or black thread quite often. So I'm keeping those things in mind as I create this layout, and like I said, I'm loosely basing it on her most recent layout on her blog, and that is this one. So with that, I'll go ahead and put you on fast forward and get started. So I'm starting with a grid of photos, and these are photos from a day that I spent with my husband out celebrating his birthday. And we went the day before his birthday because he had to work on his birthday, and we just went to breakfast, and we went to the mall, and we did photo booth photos, and we went to Costco, and we went to the movies, and he ran past the speed limit sign to see how fast he was. If you've ever seen that episode of The Office where Michael does that, that's kind of, I think, where the idea stemmed from. And then he threw out his back, so we sat on the couch the rest of the night. So I'm just applying these photos into a grid, and what I want to do is mist on the background, but I want the photos to have kind of a white border around them. So I'm creating a mask using some cardstock for each of the photos, and I cut them slightly larger than the photos. So the photos are 2 by 2, and then the larger one is a 3 by 4. And so I'm just cutting the masks slightly larger than that, and just kind of arranging them on the layout how I want them to go. And I'm using some Mr. Huey's in Splash, just a nice aqua color. And I'm just misting from very far away to get a really light kind of dusting of color. And after I mist them on, I just love the way that looks with the white. I covered up all of that white with the photos, but I'd like to do another layout where I leave some white spaces over, whatever I misted, because I really like the way that it looks. So what I'm going to do is I put my photos down to see how the white border looks, and I realized that the white border isn't as large as I would have liked it to be. And so I'm just going to cut my photos down just a little bit so that it gives it a little bit more of a border. And I like the way that it looks better when I do that. So I'll just cut all of them down. And then what I'm going to do is, I've got my sewing machine out. You can kind of see it in the top left corner there. I'm going to stitch around each one of those squares and that rectangle with some black thread to just kind of give them some definition. And like I mentioned before, Jill Sprott, she stitches a lot, and she often uses a colored or a black thread. And something I've noticed about her layouts is they're very bright, and they also have high contrast oftentimes. And so I am just trying to go for that a little bit. And what I'm doing when I stitch around is I'm going around with just a straight stitch, and then in a few places I'm adding a zigzag stitch. So you'll see that on 2 of the squares, I add a little bit of a zigzag, and then on the rectangle, I stitch around it several times and do a zigzag on every edge of that. So here's one, and I'm just placing the photo in to see how it looks. And I'm just going to continue on. And like I said, I'm just using some black thread. I didn't bother to change my bobbin to a darker thread, but you could do that. Sometimes the thread shows through, but it didn't for me, and it doesn't bother me. I'm just too lazy to change it. So you'll see here in a second that I'm going to jump ahead, and here it is finished. And I'm just going to pull the threads through to the back and secure them with some washi tape. I prefer to pull the threads through to the back rather than just clip them on the front because I feel like it's more secure. So I always just tug on the thread that's hanging on the back, and it will usually pull the thread through that's hanging on the front. So I can just grab it and pull it all the way through, if that makes any sense. So just doing that here. It's going to take me a second. While I'm doing that, don't forget to check out Juliet Sheriff's channel to see how she interprets Jill Sprout's style. I love Juliet's style, and I think her layouts are always awesome and amazing, so be sure to check her channel out. I'll make sure to link to it below in the video description. So, like I said, just using a little washi tape, and then I'm going to cut off the ends. And then I will get putting my photos in there to see how they look. And I decided that I wanted, since I did so much work around the border of that larger photo, I wanted a little bit more of that stitching to show, so I cut down the photo just a little bit more so that it could show. And now I am going to create a border on the left side with some various strips of paper. I go through a lot of different strips deciding what I want, and I wanted to use that paper from that multicolored paper is from the Crate Paper Open Road collection, and that paper, I like it because it has multiple colors, and I always like to include, well, not always, but I often like to include something with multiple colors that can help tie in the other colors together. I did cut that Chamel dot pattern, but didn't end up using it. I flipped it over to the red stripe side and thought I might use that side, but then I thought it was too many stripes. Not before I tried adding another stripe, though. I'm going to end up including this triangle paper from We Are Memory Keepers, and that is from the Inked Rose collection. And then I'm also going to include this paper from Pebbles, and I'm going to use the side that has the like kind of dictionary paper on it, or it's a newsprint. And that's how these strips will end up staying. I'm going to get them adhered down, and then what I'm going to do is stitch along that diagonal border strip with some more black thread after I adhere these down. So I'm not adding a ton of adhesive where I know that the machine will be stitching, because I don't want to gum up my needle with adhesive. So I just take that back out. At first I thought I would just do one straight stitch down the edge, but I end up adding some more stitching to that. I noticed that my papers weren't going all the way to the top of that white piece of paper, so I'm just trimming off a tiny bit on the top. And then I'm going to add some more stitching, and I'm going to do a bunch of zigzag stitches over the top of each other to just kind of give a little bit of extra pop, or just bring a little bit more attention to the stitching, so that it's kind of like this messy zigzag awesomeness. So after I get that stitched down, I'm going to adhere the threads again on the back with some washi tape. This layout took me quite a long time, but it was a very enjoyable process, so it doesn't bother me. I did rough up the edges a little bit of some of those strips for a little bit of extra dimension. And speaking of extra dimension, I wanted to add something behind the photo without taking away from that stitching. So I'm adding some vellum that I've folded in half, and I just stapled it together to keep it folded while I'm deciding what else I want to do. And I'm going to adhere these photos down in the centers of the squares before I decide, or before I finalize that larger photo. I'm just sticking them down in order of how the day occurred. And now I'm going to get that piece stuck down. Because of that fold, there's a little bit of extra loft, and so I'm going to put some thin foam tabs on one side, and then I'm just using my American Crafts this to that adhesive on the other side. And then what I'm going to do is pull out I have a like a thicker pen. So you usually see me use my Muji pen, and it has a very fine tip. Because what I usually see Jill use, I think she uses a Sharpie, but it's a broader tip marker what she uses. And so I'm using a .08 pen. This is one from Close to My Heart. I don't think they make them anymore, but I'll link to a similar product. And I'm going to draw some arrows, and then I'm going to number each photo. So I'm using these little tiny tile alphabet stickers from Basic Gray. I pulled out a few options before making up my mind for sure, but they're just a little aqua tile letter sticker or number sticker. Well, there's letters and numbers, but I'm using the numbers, and I'm just putting one next to each photo. And then what I'm going to do is take my pen and draw a little arrow to where the journaling is for each photo. And it's not really journaling so much as a little caption for each photo. And I'm just going to write what we did in each one. So like the first one, number 1 says breakfast at Neater's. Number 2 says $5 sunglasses plus photo booth. 3 says trying to be young. 4 says movie Insurgent, which is what we went to see. 5 says Costco for essentials. 6 says clocking his speed a la Michael from The Office. And then number 7 says relaxing on the couch after throwing out his back running because he's so old. So just documenting those little details. And I think that this is an interesting way of journaling. I'm not going to put any more journaling than that because the title is going to tell you what it is, and then those little captions tell you what we did. So I pulled out some of the Maggie Holmes confetti collection from Crate Paper because it is kind of a birthday collection, and there are these really cute scripty words that say happy birthday, which I absolutely love, and I thought I would use those for my title. I don't know if you can really tell, but the way that happy, the H in happy kind of goes like those letters, those words are just, they kind of fit into the spaces really nicely of the journaling and the photos, and I really like that. I knew I wanted to do something more than just happy birthday, so I'm doing birthday shenanigans, and I'm using these thickers. They're called Match. They're from an Amy Tangerine collection. I really, really like them. They're not sticky at all, but the font is small and it comes with a lot of letters, so it's really awesome. And shenanigans is a long word, so I had to choose something that would fit. So I'm just trying to decide how I want to do the title. I thought I might use that little birthday hat, but in the end I decided I didn't want to go gold on this one. I don't have gold anywhere else, and I didn't want to add some, so I'll keep bringing it out though, thinking I might want to use it. So at this point I decide to just go with the title Birthday Shenanigans and get rid of the happy, because I figured I can use happy for any other layout. And so I'm just using the word birthday. And I pulled out some stickers from a previous Crate Paper collection. I can't remember what it's called. It was a boyish one that had race cars and video games and different things like that. And these little stickers say Zoom and memories. They would have worked nicely, but they don't end up making it. I pulled out some wood stickers. They're from the We Are Memory Keepers It Factor collection. They're really cute and fun. And there was a little candle, and so I decided to replace the I in shenanigans with the candle, and I really like the way that the title looks very customized now because of that, and it just really fits in with the theme. Rather than using like birthday cake paper and stuff like that, I like little nods to the theme, like that candle, something that still goes along with the layout but doesn't scream at you that this is birthday, even though it says birthday. Do you know what I'm saying? So now I'm going through some of the pink paisley die cuts to see what I can find, and I'm looking for numbers and just I knew that there was that bright red color in some of these die cuts, so I'm looking through those. I think this is from I can't remember what it's called. There was a line that had a bunch of phones in it, and then there was like a summary line that was kind of nautical. Those are the two die cut packs that I have in here, and I apologize. because I can't remember what they're called, but I don't end up using any pieces from either one of them. So I did pull them out. So I did use some of these crepe paper die cuts. That Remember This vellum piece is from the Maggie Holmes Open Book collection. And I decided to use that because I wanted to bring in a little bit of that script font from the word birthday. And I'm going to bring it up to the top right is where it will end up going, right there. So you can see how the journaling kind of just fits in the little space between the words remember and this. And I really, really like when it does that. So I'm also looking through some die cuts from My Mind's Eye. And I do pull out a polka dot circle and a little tab that I'll end up using. I can't remember the collection, but I'll be sure to link it on my blog. And if you check out my blog, you can find all of the places that I am. I have links to my Flickr gallery, and I have links. I'll have still photos of this layout, and I have links to where you can find me online too. So there's that tab that I'm going to end up using. And one of my favorite things to do when I'm creating a layout is to just flick through all of my different embellishments. For some reason, I just really love that process. And I know some people just want to find what they need and be done, but I really love the process of just going through all of my stuff. So this is one of those layouts where I took advantage of that. When I work from a kit, I usually just use what's in the kit, and I like the way that pushes me creatively, but I like being able to find that perfect embellishment by going through all of my stuff as well, which I did this time. So that was fun. That little speech bubble thingy that says "so fun" is from the My Mind's Eye die cuts, and I don't end up using it. There's lots of things that I pull out that I don't end up using. I did decide to do the number 34 in those match stickers. And again, those are they're from an Amy Tangerine collection. I found these puffy stickers, and they are from Gossamer Blue, I think. I can't remember. I think they're from Gossamer Blue. They're so puffy and so soft. I love them. But they were the perfect shade of red. So that little one that I put on top of the photo says #do. And then that speech bubble at the top says hello. And then there's some tiny little geotags, which I thought would be fun to kind of highlight a few of the things of those smaller photos, to just place them with some of the smaller photos. I pulled out these words. They're acetate words from Studio Calico. I don't end up using them. Like I said, I decided to go through all of my embellishments for this page to see what would work. I pulled out some Heidi Swap stickers, and I do end up using a few of these that love this arrow. And then I pulled a couple of the striped little hearts to use as well. And I liked the way that the stripes brought in the stripe from the little candle. So I'm just getting that stuck down now, and I want the word birthday to overlap the word shenanigans. And so I'm sorry that you can't see me doing this, but I'm using some of those thin foam squares to put behind the word birthday I guess you can kind of see me. I'm putting them, there we go, behind the word birthday to just pop it up a little bit. And where the Y dips down and rests on the A and the N in shenanigans, I don't need to put any there because that's already lifted up, if that makes sense. So now I'm just going to use my Scotch Quick Dry adhesive to adhere those letters down, as well as that candle. And these letters just don't have much adhesive on them at all. I mean, they just don't stick. So I always use extra adhesive on my thickers, unless they're the foam thickers, because those usually stick pretty well. But I love them anyway. I'll continue to use thickers. And there's something so satisfying about putting glue on the back of something and gluing it down. I don't know if any of you feel that way, but oh my gosh, I don't know why. It's just so satisfying. So just getting those stuck down. And my Scotch Quick Dry adhesive is in that fine line bottle, which just makes it super easy to apply because of the thin tip. So I love that. And now I'm just taking off all of the backers on that word birthday from the foam adhesive that I put on it. And now I am going to get that top cluster secured down. So I am going to use my tiny attacher to staple on the Vellum Remember This. And then I'm going to play around just a little bit with some more embellishments that I think I'm going to use, but I'm not. And I am going to include these letter stickers from the Maggie Holmes Crate Paper confetti sticker sheet. I am using those little letters to spell out Philip and use an @ symbol. So it says Philip at 34. And then I'm going to play around with a little bit with the embellishments on the page and just moving around some of those puffy stickers. I just want a good balance of the color. And I'm going to pull out my roller date stamp. I'm using my Chamel roller date stamp, and I'm going to stamp the date onto that little tab using some archival black ink from Close to My Heart. And then I will get that tab adhered. I'm just going to play around with the placement a little bit on these words at the top. I'm trying to make it look balanced here, and I don't want it to be too linear. So I'm just going to place it all along the line, and then that hello speech bubble kind of gives it a little bit more loft or weight at the top. And so I like the way that looks. And I'm using my Scotch Quick Dry adhesive again on the back of those numbers to make sure they stick nicely. And then I'm going to adhere my little tab to the left of to the right of those paper strips. And I really like the way that just brings a little bit something to the top. And I'm going to try again to add that little hat, and I decide not to. And then I decide to pull in that balloon. And it does have a pink little string on the balloon. And so I was going to try to color it with some Copic markers, the pink string, and it wasn't easy enough to color, and so I'm just going to leave it pink, and that's fine because I asked my husband if it was okay for me to use pink, and he said it was because he doesn't care. So I'm going to use a few of those little striped hearts like I mentioned, and those are going to go in a couple of places, just down by the title and up by that kind of subtitle area. And then I'm going to add I'm going to think about adding a few more embellishments, but I decide not to. I'm going to add a little bit of mist in, let's see. I'm using Heidi Swap Black Color Shine here. Just a little bit at the top and the bottom, and that is going to complete the layout. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure to check out Juliet's channel to see how she interpreted Jill Sprott's style, and I'll be sure to link to that below. Also check out my blog for much more information and still photos of the project at www.craftyjenscow.com. Thanks so much for watching. We'll talk to you later.